I remember when I first started running the Cypher system, there was so much about it I didn't really know. I was so excited to jump in that I didn't really properly read the book, and there were definitely some tidbits that I missed. It's not that I ran the system wrong. As long as your players have fun, then you ran it right, no matter how the rules turned out. But there are some things that I could have run better, and one of these are followers. There are certain abilities in the game where a player can get a follower. Alternatively, the GM could also just decide that a player or even a group earns a follower in one way or another. When I first started running Cypher, I didn't realize that followers were close to the way you run most other NPCs, but with a few changes. I think I had originally missed this because my first long-form campaign had been Numenera, using Numenera Discovery, and I didn't really see the follower rules in that. However, these days I own a physical copy of both the original Cypher rulebook and the Cypher rulebook revised edition, and let me tell you, there are some real quality of life things in these, one of them being specific rules for followers, although I also feel these rules are left purposely vague in some spots. In the revised edition rulebook, you can find this on page 233. It's placed in one of those colored boxes that indicates it's more like a side thought than its own real section for some reason. I'm not sure why. Okay, first let's remind you of how to deal with a little NPC on NPC action. Oh yeah. Sorry. Since the GM doesn't really roll any dice when it's an NPC on NPC, normally if you have an NPC, non-player character, interacting with another one, you just look at the respective levels and kind of make a judgment call on what happens. There's no strict rules here, you kind of just figure out what makes sense narratively and go with that. Now, if a proper follower has gone off and is acting entirely independently of the characters, this is still how things work. The thing is, for something as intrinsic to action sequences and conflicts as a follower, situations where the characters are actually guiding and commanding it need something a little more concrete than, this is what I feel should happen, so that's what's gonna happen. The active follower rules, like many rules in the game, now put the agency back into the player's hands, but with some additions and restrictions. If the follower is directly taking orders from a PC, then by default, the player rolls for their follower much like they would roll for their own character, except that the player's own abilities and training do not directly impact this roll. Instead, if the follower has any specific modifications on it, that would apply one or more assets to the roll. Example, if for some reason as a follower you had a level 3 atomic ginger-haired robo-ninja, which I'm sure you see in pretty much every game these days, and that atomic ginger-haired robo-ninja had a modification on it that said it counts as a level 4 when it comes to moving with stealth, you would roll for the atomic ginger-haired robo-ninja with an asset for that stealth task. Here is one thing that is not made very clear, and there's a few of them. In just about every other roll made by the player in the game, the player can modify the roll with effort. There is zero mention whether this applies to the follower rules or not. I'm assuming not, since effort is directly coming from the character's ability pools and has nothing to do with the follower. However, this is Cypher, and customizing it to go with how your group wants to play things is entirely up to you. So, you could consider it if you really wanted to, because remember, your ability pools are not your health. You're not harming yourself when you lower your ability pools. That's what the character's conditions, lasting damage, permanent damage, etc. are for. Your ability pools are a representation of how much impact you have left on the scene using various aspects of your character. So theoretically, you could rule that your PCs use effort with a follower, but that's not in the official rules anywhere, and I'm pretty sure not intended in any way, just a side thought on something you could do if you'd wanted. The next point I want to touch upon is the strength of your follower and how that changes over time. When you get your follower, it is usually by an ability, and it will tell you what level the follower is, as well as any modifications it has. If you're the GM and you're just giving them the follower is likely going to be lower in level than the characters have tiers, but usually not by much, and of course minimum of 1. An exceptional follower will be 1 level higher than normal. As the character in charge of the follower gains new tiers, the level of the follower increases for every 2 tiers the character gets. For example, if a tier 1 character with a level 1 servo defender goes to tier 2, nothing happens. But when they go to tier 3, that servo defender will now finally increase to level 2. Followers of level 1 or 2 can help a character granting an asset on a non-combat task. Usually these tasks are predetermined, with one predetermined task per level of the follower. So a level 2 atomic ginger-haired robo-ninja could help a character with 2 predefined tasks, something that makes sense, like stealth or fly fishing. At level 3, a follower can also help with combat-related activities if they have those as predefined tasks, providing an asset to attack or defense in these cases. Some followers have exceptions to these rules that may adjust when they can help you in certain situations. There are basically 3 types of followers, one of which could be confusing because of the name, so let's go over them. Firstly, you have your standard follower. This is likely gained through an ability, although could be gifted by the GM. This follower works as I stated above. Depending on how you get it, this could be anything from your well-trained pet dog to a mystical spirit or a flying drone. It's Cypher. Who knows what kind of crazy followers you could get. The second type is an exceptional follower. These are not generally granted automatically from abilities. Normally this is either a GM giving an exceptional follower for funsies, or allowing your follower from an ability to be an exceptional follower. Usually this is due to roleplay situations or something that you've earned in the game. Exceptional followers, like I've stated before, are generally 1 level higher than they would be otherwise if they were just a standard follower. Finally are pets, which can be a little confusing, since normal followers can be pets, but not all pets can be normal followers. Sometimes pets are just pets. A pet is a very basic type of follower. They do not have any modifications of any kind and are not exceptional. Pet type followers are limited in what they can do. The main use of a pet type follower is that they can provide an asset on any tasks related to peace of mind, finding comfort, resisting loneliness, basically anything like that. Anything that helps your mental stability because you've got your cute little cuddly kitty. It's strange to wrap your mind around, but something like an attack dog would not be a pet type follower, but would rather be a normal type follower that happens to be your pet. Gosh, I really wish they'd chosen a different name for that. For less confusion, I think in my games, I'll probably refer to them as standard followers, exceptional followers, and maybe like personal companions or something like that. So there's the rundown of the actual rules from the book. It briefly mentions you make roles for them, but then the rest of the rules go on to talk about the followers taking the help action, which doesn't require a role. So I assume it means the followers can still do things when commanded, like attack and defend with the appropriate roles. Otherwise, everything they would do would either be a help action, which does not require a role, or as acting entirely independently, which according to the rules does not require any roles. In the end, how it's played is up to the group. If you're a GM and you have 1 or more players that have followers, go through these guidelines and just sort of make the tweaks you think works best. That's the way Cypher works for me anyways. Okay, well, that's all I have for you on this topic. I know it was a little confusing at parts, but parts of it I think are left vague on purpose so that you can kind of customize it depending on what you need. Remember, Cypher isn't as crunchy of a system as some that you may be used to. It is meant to have a lot more back and forth between the GM and the players. This is probably why some of the rules are purposely left vague, to just sort of go with the flow and figure out what works best in the moment. Now, don't forget to check out my other videos and keep your eye out on some new content coming out soon once the open license fully drops. I've got some plans, buddy. I've got some plans. Oh, they're a beauty. Stay healthy, stay safe, and have a good one, eh?